All right, we're going to talk unified sports today. First, thanks everybody for taking part in this session. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about some exciting things that are happening in our state in regards to unified sports. Real quickly, the agenda is going to be going a little bit over what the mission of Special Olympics is and how it fits into unified sports, along with who we are as an organization, going through defining unified sports, talking about how it has evolved from the past and what we're currently working on in the present, and how we're going to set a path for implementation of unified sports in Wisconsin. So the mission. So for those of you that were at the first session or the opening with Denny, he talked about the mission of Special Olympics. And I usually always try to start off with every talk that I give with the Special Olympics mission, because that is what we are grounded in. That is everything that we should always have in our thought. And as Denny said, that really it's been the same with the exception of this has actually changed. It's now intellectual. So it's you need to update that. Used to say what? Mental retardation, right? So that's changed, and that used to be cognitive. So that's gonna be changed out. But the thing here is, the mission is what we do is we provide year-round sports training and athletic competition in a variety of Olympic-type sports for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. But what that does is it gives them continued opportunities to develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, experience joy, participate in the sharing of gifts, skills, and friendship with their families, other Special Olympics athletes, and the community. And the community is what I want to focus on today. So who are we? What are we? I go around quite a bit giving talks about Special Olympics to groups that don't know. Now you guys know, but in this next slide, this is, while it's not our mission statement, it is on the website. It is about what it is. It talks about who we are as an organization. And Special Olympics is a global movement of people creating a new world of inclusion and community. There's that word community again, where every single person is accepted and welcomed regardless of ability or disability. We're helping to make the world a better, healthier, and more joyful place, one athlete, one volunteer, one family member at a time. And again, it's the inclusion and community that we're going to come back to with unified sports. So what exactly is unified sports? The definition of unified sports is it's an inclusive program, so we're inclusive, which combines individuals with intellectual disabilities, we refer to them as athletes, and individuals without intellectual disabilities, we refer to them as partners, on sports teams for training and competition. Training or competition. You can have that word in there as well. It's where athletes and partners compete alongside one another, each in a meaningful and integral role on the unified sports team. And that's going to be a message going forward, is that it's not just athletes and partners together on the team. It's the athletes and partners competing or practicing or playing alongside each other in a meaningful role. Okay, and I'll explain what that means later on. So, why unified sports? Okay, so for people that have been around a while, they've gone through unified sports before. There's nothing new about this in terms of the term unified sports and kind of the overall idea of athletes and partners playing together. But unified sports, what it does is it creates a unique teammate bond through sports experiences, just like any other team. So when you're on a team, you are forming these bonds, you're forming these friendships that are life-lasting, what we hope, outside of the playing field as well. But with unified sports, what we're seeing is that it leads to new friendships, improved self-esteem, and positive changes in attitudes towards those with disabilities. And again, it gives us the chance to look at our athletes in an environment where in traditional sports, you have a coach in the past that has not had an intellectual disability. That's changing too, right, guys? So now where they can be coaches as well. But the idea was that was really the only mingling with the team, was you had an individual without special needs or without an intellectual disability that was coaching this team of players. And so you really don't get that teammate bonding when you have that situation. So what we're looking for is to create those teammate bonds. And that, again, as it goes off the field, so that creates a culture of inclusion and fosters understanding in schools and in communities as well. So again, you're taking that friendship, you're taking that outside of sports for the progression of sports inclusion to social inclusion. And that's really the message that we're trying to send with unified sports, is that it's going from, we want to take it from the field, outside the field, into the schools, into the community, and be able to share friendship in those environments as well. So the evolution of unified sports. So unified sports of the past, these are some of the problems that were happening, over a decade ago with some of the sports. The rules, rigid rules, the rules in terms of keeping track for basketball, what percentage of points and who was playing, and it became very cumbersome to keep track of these things, and it really took away from the sport. Peer dominance was another problem that was identified in the past, where you would have one or two partners that really would take over, and they would just basically run the team and say if this person was on a team with Jake and David and Adam, a basketball team, would never pass to them. Just say, they'd be wide open and say, I'm taking it to the hole and I'm scoring every single time, right? So we saw a lot of that. And then it really was non-inclusive off the court. So you would have partners and athletes playing on the court, and then they would leave the court or the field or whatever sport it was, and go off their separate ways. So we didn't really see that teammate bonding taking place outside of the playing field. Some of that, I think, was in terms of partner recruitment, who we were looking at for which, what makes a good partner, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. And so I don't think that some of those ideas were really thought out, and it led to a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct. And believe it or not, you think Special Olympics, you think everybody, gets along, and everybody, there were some pretty ugly instances in the past. And so those are some of the things that as we evolve unified sports, we're going to look to try to eliminate some of those problems. So moving forward, there are three components that have been identified that drive success of unified sports. I will say that as a state, we've got a long ways to go. We've been kind of looking around at what other states do, and have been kind of taking these new ideas and really moving with them. And on the downside of us kind of being lagging behind a bit is that we can actually see, though, what's being successful in other states. And that's kind of what we're doing. And so there's been three different components that really have been allowing for unified sports to be more successful in this age. One of those is that there's three different sports models, and we'll talk specifically about each of those, but that allows programs and agencies to have more flexibility, and the schools as well. Sports selection, there are some sports that just are better for inclusive activity, for unified sports, and so that's going to be a factor. And then again, looking at the partners. Where are the partners coming from? Who are these partners? Is there a selection process? Is there a better way to do recruitment and to match partners up with athletes? And so those are the three things that we're going to break down here next. So the three different sport models are, and I'll go through each one in detail, but real quick here, we have unified sports competitive. That's the most typical one that our state is used to seeing. That's what we've had in the past. At this point in time, all we really have traditional is golf.
And my volleyball.
Well, yeah, but that's not in our state. And so the other options are, and we'll talk about these, unified sports player development and unified sports recreation. Okay, so next slide. The competitive model combines athletes and partners as teammates for training and competition. Again, this is kind of the way that we've done things in the past. The specifics for the competitive model are that all players have to obtain the requisite sports skills and knowledge. So they have to be able to understand the rules of the sport as they are written through SOI and then down through SOWI in a non-adaptable way. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But to know the sport. No modifications. Okay, so if it's basketball, you can't make a modification like say, well, we're going to just have partners be passers only. Let's say. So this is competitive. This is a competitive model. You have to have a non-playing coach. That's what we've always had. And athletes and partners should be of similar age and ability in team sports. And so that's kind of a big one that we're looking at. And I know that it's going to be hard going forward at first until we can really grow the program. But that defines the competitive model. So this is the one Jeannie thought I'd never be able to explain. All right, so this is a graph, and what it's showing is that it's showing equal ability of athletes and partners. So if it's a graph here where we're looking at ability level of really high ability and really low ability, and we're just grouping partners and athletes. So all of these partners, P1, player 2, player 3, player 4, player 5, they're all kind of in this area here, which is in the upper half of the ability level. And our athletes are the same thing. So if you were to rank them in their ability level, do some type of skill assessment test, you would find that they would rank in the above, the middle, the median here of ability. And so that's what they're looking for. That's what we're looking for teams for competitive for the competitive model. Next slide. So here's the same type of slide, and it's showing here where you have partners that are all kind of in the lower half, and they're matched up with athletes that are in the lower half. So again, I realize that this could be hard depending on what school you're at, how many people you have, what kind of, if you have a traditional agency and you have non-school age based, if they're all adults, trying to find enough to do this is really difficult. And that's why we've talked about some of the other models, they may be a better fit for you. Next slide. So here we have the player development model. So this is formerly called training or mentor model, where it combines equal number of athletes and partners for training competition. Similar age is ideal. Certain sports allow greater variance depending on what the sport is, but you want to try to have the athletes be about the same age, athletes and partners. Players of higher abilities serve as mentors to assist players of lower abilities in practice and competitions. And this is where you could have rule modifications. So an example would be, I think this went to the next slide. So here's an example where maybe you've got a basketball team, you've got some partners, and they're maybe on the high school basketball team, right? So these guys are the high school basketball team. They got one friend who got cut, but they're all kind of in this really high ability level. But at their school, they're athletes. They've got one that's slightly above the median, but the rest are pretty low ability. So you really would want to form a team that would then go out and compete against someone else in a competitive model at a tournament. Now you still, could set something up where you could invite another school or another community. Again, this is equal ability here for schools and community for any age. But it would be this would be a situation where you would want to look at this player development model where you have you form teams, and again, that's now where you could have where the partners, maybe they don't score, they only become passers, or you have some type of modified rule for that, and then you would be able to go out then and you could really serve as a leadership model here for these athletes, for these partners, to be able to train these athletes. So the purpose of this is, again, it's social inclusion, because they are together, right? They are practicing, they're playing together. It's working on the development of skills and improved comprehension of the game for lower ability players, develop leadership and teaching skills for players in the mentoring roles. It allows teammates with a wide range of ability to have meaningful involvement with rule modification. So again, it comes down to making sure that you're finding a way to do this so that it is meaningful involvement for these athletes. That if you have somebody that can barely dribble, you make an allowance, you make a modification that while this person is practicing a couple times a week on dribbling, that maybe when you play a game or you get together with another school or something that you do this, that you could say, well, a couple of these athletes, they're going to get 15 steps per dribbling or something like that. But you're allowed these types of modifications. And again, this allows sub-programs or agencies greater options when there are not athletes and partners who match ability levels. The recreation model is something entirely different, where this could be something like a one-time get-together. It's any type of recreational opportunity that is inclusive. And we'd like to have at least 25% athletes in these things, but this could be something like a kickball game. It could be a one-time thing where you do have athletes and community members come out and participate in badminton. It doesn't have to be a standard Special Olympics sport. It's just a recreational sport with the idea to get people with or without intellectual disabilities together, playing together in a meaningful and inclusive way. Less structure doesn't mean any type of minimum training or competition standards. Exposure or entry point to unified sports. It's kind of like your first step to go in. So we're looking right now to do something with Madison. There's a group that they're going to do ultimate frisbee, and they're going to set this up as kind of a one-time thing and invite some athletes to come out. And you never know if that might lead to something else down the road, some type of intramural program. But at least it's just set up as a fun day for athletes to come and do something in an inclusive, meaningful way. Sites, this could be schools, clubs, sports organizations, community. There's a wide range of opportunities here to do this unified sports experiences. And I'll talk later about some of these things that we're going to start doing as state tournaments as well. So unified sports experiences are inclusive exhibitions or unity events. These are one-day events that showcase talents and abilities of Special Olympics athletes. The idea would be something like a halftime event at a high school or college football or basketball game, where during halftime the athletes would come out, they'd be matched with partners and have some type of recreational event. Demonstrations and open community events. It could be something like there's in Madison, there's a youth triathlon, and so I'm talking with them about possibly getting some of our athletes to take part in that. And so that's a community event, open community events, or anything like running events, 5Ks, things like that. Again, I bring up Madison a lot because I'm here, but they have a thing around the Capitol as well. So different types of things like that. So Special Olympics, special events, Special Olympics athletes, professional and Olympic athletes, dignitaries, and celebrities, non-official. That's kind of a long, weird sentence. I don't know how that got in there, but what it is anybody see the NBA All-Star event, where the athletes were out there? And Jake,
I know one who was out there.
You do? Yeah, who was that?
Ricky Kelly.
Ricky Kelly, the famous Ricky Kelly. Yep.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool thing where they took they took athletes around the U.S. and gave them a chance to be on the team and play. And he played with, I think he was with like Chris Mullen from the School of the Warriors. And he was on that team with some of the older, and then some newer athletes too. Sam old, I don't remember. But those are what are identified as unified sports experiences. At national games, they had something like this for each of the main sports, for several sports. Flag football, of course, which was the best. But they had an event there, and basketball had an event. Did they do anything at volleyball?
Didn't, because we had 2 divisions of unified volleyball.
That's right, yeah.
So we didn't have to. That was going on all the time.
So, how are we going to implement unified sports in our state? So we talked about the different models. One of the things to first point out are we want to look and see what are the criteria for success. What has worked around the U.S. And what are the things that we're looking for when we build this program in our state? The principle of meaningful involvement. And actually, now that I think about it, Angela was supposed to make all kinds of handouts for me. They're up here. Oh, perfect. So we've got some handouts for you, and one of them is just an overview and the comparison of the different sports models. There's a whole lot of information, but there's something called principles of meaningful involvement. What really is meaningful involvement? Okay, if I'm on a team with Jake and say we're doing badminton, and Jake, every time that the what's it called, Jake? The birdie? The birdie comes to Jake, I jump in front of him and I smash it. And I'm like, well, sorry, Jake, I don't want to lose this game. Is that meaningful involvement for Jake? No, it's not. And so that's what we really want to look at. We want to make sure that we have meaningful involvement, appropriate sports selection. What are the sports that are more conducive to unified sports? We want to look at that. We want to look at making sure that our coaches are qualified and knowledgeable. And we want to look at how the selection of teammates are done. How, are we recruiting the proper channels? Does it really make sense that if you want to build a competitive, unified team for your school, that you go and get the football players or the basketball players? No. Maybe you get the players that like football and basketball, but they're not playing on the team. They weren't good enough to make the team. And there's nothing wrong with that. But look at community members, and are there certain people that would be better for being teammates? And so you want to look at that. We want to look at regular training competition. We want to look at compliance with official rules and ability divisioning, and resources. Okay, that's going to be a big thing. Everybody's always struggling for resources, and so we have to be able to say, as a state, we're going to commit towards this direction and be able to help schools and community-based programs. So I talked a little bit about sports selection for success. So what sports are more conducive to unified sports? And what has been identified as some that are not the best are basketball, soccer, softball. I think it's still out there about tennis, because there's some states that are having real success with tennis. Volleyball, flag football. And so why is that? And the reason is that there's interdependence among the athletes and the partners, but there's interactive confrontation between the teams. And anytime you have that, like in basketball, where you bring the ball down, you're going one-on-one against somebody, anything like that, or in football where, you're matched up and you're going one-on-one. Even though it's a team sport, there's these interactive confrontations that take place. And that has where we've seen, led to some of the problems for the peer dominance, for just bad behavior sometimes. That doesn't mean it won't work and that we're not going to try it, but we want to kind of look at some of these things. The sports that have shown to be more successful are those that are interdependent, but they're non-confrontational. So you still have, bowling with teams. You still have an athlete and a partner, and they're competing against another athlete and a partner. But you're not like up there saying, well, whoever gets the ball down there the fastest gets the strike, or gets the pin count. It's less confrontational. Bocce's that way. Golf is that way. Sailing, it's true that we have actually experimented with some sailing around in the Madison region, but that made the list. This is a list that actually came from SOI, so I'm not sure how many programs around the U.S. are doing sailing. But anyway, another one, athletics and aquatics. And we're really looking hard into seeing, we experimented with some unified relays last year. I'd like to do that we did them in track. I'd like to see about doing them in aquatics. But those are types of things where it's a team working together. Yes, your time is going to determine, if you're first, second, or third against this other team, but it's not as confrontational. You as your group, your teammates, your partner, and athletes are competing in a meaningful, inclusive way to some goal. Okay, but you're not going head to head. Next slide. So, based on all that information that we have, these are some of the things that we're doing in Wisconsin. And the top of the list is golf. Okay, that's the main sport that we offer in our traditional program for traditional athletes and agencies to compete. Okay, we have the golf tournaments that go we have a couple regionals and they go to state. That is really the only, how do I want to say it, SOE-sponsored state event for unified sports. But some of the other things that we're trying, and we're going to continue to try, I mentioned sailing, so that kind of falls under the recreational model, where we've invited athletes. We invited some of the Madison schools to come out, and then this last one, we invited. There's a group on campus, Badgers for Special Olympics. We invited them out, and then Best Buddies and trying to build a collaboration with them as well to come out. And then that way, we're everybody's interacting. But it's really a recreational model. It's fun. We go out there, we sail around, and we got pizza afterwards. The other thing that I started last year was it's an indoor triathlon. That is actually a competition model, and for a first year, it was really successful. We had 40 people that went last January to East YMCA. We had traditional agencies. We had a couple schools come out. They formed teams where you had teams of 3, and somebody would ride a bike, a stationary bike, somebody would swim in a pool, and somebody would run on a treadmill. And then we would add all the times together, and their team total then determined their place. And we had some teams that had 1 athlete with an intellectual disability and 2 partners. We had some that were 2 athletes and 1 partner, and we had some that were 3 athletes as well. So, and then individuals. So it was a lot of fun, and it's only going to grow, I think. So we'll be doing that again this year. Unified track relays. We had 4x100s last year in Madison at the Region 6 event, and they had them in Region 4. This year, they should be at every regional track meet. So that will be available for both traditional agencies and for schools. Flag football, maybe that was one of the ones that they said didn't work so great. We're still going to try some of these things, and we're doing a recreational model unity event at the state tournament this year. So we've got 1 school coming, La Follette. What's La Follette here? Yay, La Follette. All right. They're coming. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any other school, but we're going to put together a team for them to scrimmage. And then afterwards, we're going to have a unity event where high school athletes and local officers are going to get together, and we're going to match up and make a couple of different teams and have this unity event. So it should be a lot of fun. Bowling, recreation competitive model. The schools are doing that. Jeannie and Kristen have done that. Last year was the first year, right? And you're doing both this year, right? Recreation and competitive model.
Yes, last year was just recreation, and this year we're going to have divisions for competitive teams.
Nice. Okay, and then tennis, we attempted to have a recreation player development model last year, and it didn't work out so well, not because of anything other than the weather and the timing. We had a couple high school players come out, and we were going to put together some teams. And it was just a long, hot day. And by the time competition was over, everybody was sunburnt and ready to go home. So we're going to try to figure out a way to do it maybe at night or something next year at the state tournament. SO College, okay, is any model. This is Special Olympics College. We have how many colleges now in the state?
3 official, 2 in the works.
All right, and this is really exciting because this is kind of taking, for those of you that know about PU, kind of at the college level. So that way when you graduate, you'll have something else to look forward to. And so the idea is that with the sports models, they could pick any of those different sports models. Okay, I mentioned that the one group is going to do ultimate frisbee, but that's just recreation. They could ultimately put together, a bocce team or something, and try to go to another college and play against them. And so that would be a competitive model. So there's a lot of different opportunities there. Okay. Agency run. Okay, so if an agency was interested in doing something, they could pick a model. Okay, and we're going to have competition grants available this coming year again, right? So up to 400, I think. Similar to the competition grants agencies are already used to applying for, they can apply for something to run some type of unified sport, and so that's available. SoFit is the running program. It's running right now, but the idea is to also get walking and cycling and anything that is kind of a health and fitness model to get out there where it includes people with or without disabilities. So running is a big thing right now that we've got most athletes we target, some who can run longer distance. We've got 6 athletes in the state that are doing different races in their communities. They've got trainers. Martha Hill's got a fantastic story about how she's been training with a trainer who runs ultra marathons, and he's worked with her, and she's lost all kinds of weight. She's running. Her blood pressure's gone down. So some really good stories there. We've got an athlete that's going to World Games, Alex Guild, and so it's small, but the idea is to just keep it growing. It's really neat. So Alex will be going for the half marathon, which is really cool. And we've got Mike Friedrich. I don't know if anybody knows him. He's another one where he just has always loved to run, but it's never been very organized. And so now we've got him in this program. He's going to the community. He's running with people, and it's really a neat thing. So it's just that could kind of fit any model. Mike doesn't like to compete. He just likes to run. So we work with him to find a trainer to just work on running. Whereas like Alex and Tyler, those guys like to compete, and so that's a competitive model where they're going to compete. And Scott Perry, he's in my region too.
And I'll just add to that too, that's something that the SO colleges are interested in. So I think we're going to have trainers available
I saw that.
at the university levels that if athletes are interested, just let your regional director know, because then we can match you
Start
up.
matching them up, yep. And I'll just finish with, there's a lot of resources out there. A lot of effort is going into this from a world perspective, from SOI. It's not just our state. It's the world. It's U.S. and it's down to the state levels. So there are a ton of brand new resources available for anybody that's interested. I can help you find those. There's also a incredibly wonderful training tool called Coaching Unified Sports. It's available from the National Federation of High Schools online learning website, and it is fabulous. It really is, and it's free. And so. If you're interested in any of this, I would encourage you to go in there. And they actually have, for anybody that was in the divisioning earlier, they actually talk a little bit about divisioning, and they talk a little bit about forming teams, and it's just a really, really good video. So I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions?